From a Star Trek spoof that premiered before Star Wars hit theaters to featuring future Emmy winners in their first TV roles, this forgotten 1977 sci-fi comedy hid bizarre behind-the-scenes secrets, tragic accidents, and surprising connections that would shock even its most devoted cult followers, including an unexpected cameo in Breaking Bad decades later. Fact 1. It beat Star Wars to TV. The pilot episode of Quark premiered on NBC on May 7, 1977, which might not sound particularly remarkable until you realize what else happened that month. Star Wars, the movie that would change science fiction forever and launch a cultural phenomenon, didn't hit theaters until May 25th of that same year. That means Quark's pilot aired a full 18 days before anyone had seen Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, or Darth Vader on the big screen. Here's where it gets interesting. Quark was created as a spoof of science fiction shows and movies, and while it primarily parodied Star Trek during its pilot, the series would go on to mock Star Wars once the show returned as a mid-season replacement in February of 1978. So Buck Henry and the creators of Quark were essentially spoofing a phenomenon that hadn't even started yet when their pilot first aired. The show's timing was both incredibly lucky and unlucky at the same time. When NBC saw how massive Star Wars became over the summer of 1977, they greenlit Quark for a 7-episode run, hoping to capitalize on the sudden explosion of public interest in all things sci-fi. However, this also meant that Quark was now competing in a landscape where audiences had much higher expectations for special effects and production values. The show's low-budget charm and get-smart-style humor, which might have felt fresh in May, suddenly looked cheap and dated by the time the series proper launched 9 months later. It's one of television's great what-if moments. If that pilot had aired just 3 weeks later, after Star Wars mania had already begun, would Quark have been remembered differently? Fact 2. Richard Benjamin took a pay cut. Richard Benjamin wasn't actively looking for television work when Quark came into his life in the most unlikely way imaginable. The established film and television actor was sitting in his dentist's waiting room, flipping through a copy of Variety magazine to pass the time, when a particular item caught his attention. The trade publication mentioned that Buck Henry, the brilliant comedy writer behind Get Smart and the screenwriter of The Graduate, was developing a new science fiction comedy series for NBC. Benjamin had worked with Henry before and deeply respected his comedic sensibilities, so the idea of collaborating with him again immediately appealed to the actor. What happened next demonstrates just how much Benjamin wanted to be part of this project. Rather than wait for his agent to reach out or for the producers to come to him, Benjamin picked up the phone himself and called to request an audition. This was unusual behavior for an actor of his stature and experience. Even more surprising was his willingness to negotiate on salary. When the financial discussions began, Benjamin learned that the budget for this quirky sci-fi spoof couldn't match his usual television fee. Instead of walking away or letting the opportunity slip through his fingers, he made the decision to accept less money than he typically commanded for similar work. His reasoning was straightforward. The chance to work with Buck Henry again and be part of what he hoped would be a groundbreaking comedy series was worth more to him than his standard paycheck. Benjamin's enthusiasm for the project showed in his performance as Adam Quark, the frustrated captain of an interstellar garbage scow who longed for more exciting assignments, and his commitment helped attract other talented performers to the show. Fact 3. The Doublemint twins were the Bettys. Patricia and Cy Barnstable brought instant recognition to Quark because millions of Americans already knew their faces from television commercials. The identical twin sisters from Louisville, Kentucky had achieved national fame as the Doublemint twins in Wrigley's chewing gum advertisements, where they represented the product's "double the pleasure, double the fun" slogan. Their wholesome, all-American image made them perfect for commercials, but it also made their casting in Quark particularly clever. On the show, they played Betty 1 and Betty 2, the gorgeous co-pilots and navigators of the garbage scow, who both wore revealing gold lame halter tops and hot pants. The running joke was that one Betty was a clone of the other, created in a laboratory accident, but each twin insisted that she was the original and the other was the copy. This created endless comedic confusion for Captain Quark, who found himself attracted to Betty but could never figure out which one was the real person and which was the clone, leaving him unable to pursue a relationship with either of them. The Barnstable sisters had impressive credentials beyond their commercial work. Patricia had been crowned Miss Kentucky in 1971 and finished as 5th runner-up in the Miss America pageant that same year. Both sisters had performed in Bob Hope's 1972 USO tour of Vietnam, singing and dancing for American troops. They had also modeled for major magazines including Cosmopolitan, Vogue, Glamour, and Good Housekeeping. Their transition from modeling and commercials to acting roles showed their versatility, and Quark represented one of their most significant television opportunities, giving them regular series roles with substantial screen time in every episode during the show's brief run. Fact 4. Their father was banned from the NBA. Dale Barnstable's basketball career should have been a launching pad for professional glory, but instead it became a cautionary tale that haunted his family for years. Playing for the University of Kentucky under legendary coach Adolph Rupp, Dale was part of the school's celebrated Fab Five lineup and helped the team win NCAA championships in 1949 and 1951. His talent on the court was undeniable, and professional basketball seemed like his destiny. However, 1951 turned out to be a devastating year for college basketball and for Dale Barnstable personally. That year, a massive point-shaving scandal rocked the sport, revealing that gamblers had corrupted dozens of players across multiple universities. Point shaving involved players deliberately missing shots or controlling the margin of victory to help gamblers win bets based on point spreads. When investigators uncovered the scheme, Dale Barnstable was implicated along with several other prominent college players. The consequences were swift and permanent. The NBA banned him for life, effectively ending his professional basketball dreams before they could begin. For Dale, 1951 was indeed a roller coaster year, as his daughter Patricia later noted. He went from championship glory to lifetime banishment, and from college star to unemployed athlete. He also became a father that same year when Patricia and Cy were born on May 23rd. Dale eventually rebuilt his life, working as a teacher and school principal, but the shadow of the scandal never completely disappeared. Decades later, when his daughters Patricia and Cy found success as the Doublemint twins and later as actresses on Quark, they were able to restore some pride to the Barnstable name and prove that the family had moved beyond that difficult chapter. Fact 5. Kirstie Alley's first on-screen role. Long before Kirstie Alley became a household name as Rebecca Howe on Cheers or starred in the Look Who's Talking movies, she appeared in a blink and you'll miss it role on Quark that marked her first ever appearance on television. The episode was called The Old and the Beautiful, which aired on March 3, 1978, and Alley played Princess Karna's second handmaiden in a completely uncredited part. She had no lines, no close-ups, and her name didn't appear anywhere in the credits, making this role essentially background work. At the time, Alley was a 27-year-old aspiring actress who had recently moved to Los Angeles from Kansas, drawn by her interest in Scientology, but also hoping to break into show business. Landing any on-screen work, even uncredited, was a victory for someone just starting out in Hollywood. The episode's plot involved Captain Quark aging rapidly due to a virus and being ordered to complete a romantic interlude with the beautiful Princess Karna to maintain a treaty with the Gorgons. Alley appeared as one of the princess's attendants in these scenes. What makes this small role historically interesting is the path Alley would take afterward. Her next television appearances were as a contestant on game shows like Match Game in 1979 and Password Plus in 1980, where she identified herself as an interior designer and won $6,000. It would take 2 more years before she landed her first credited acting job, but when it came, it was a doozy. She played the Vulcan Savick in the 1982 blockbuster Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. From there, her career took off, eventually leading to her Emmy-winning role on Cheers starting in 1987, proving that even the smallest, most invisible beginning can lead somewhere remarkable. Fact 6. A main cast member died tragically. Richard Kelton had finally achieved the breakthrough role he'd worked toward for years when he was cast as Ficus Pandorata, the logical plant-based humanoid science officer on Quark. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska on April 29, 1943, Kelton grew up in Miami, Oklahoma, where watching James Dean movies inspired him to become an actor. After earning both bachelor's and master's degrees in drama from the University of Kansas, he moved to California and spent the early 1970s building his resume with guest appearances on shows like Gunsmoke, The Waltons, and Mission Impossible. He also earned critical praise for his performance in the 1976 Broadway revival of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and toured with Katharine Hepburn in A Matter of Gravity. When Quark was canceled in April of 1978 after just 8 episodes, Kelton quickly moved on to his next project. He was cast in Centennial, NBC's ambitious miniseries about the American West, where he was supposed to play a co-starring role as Philip Wendell. On November 27, 1978, while filming was taking place on a ranch south of Denver, Colorado, Kelton retreated to his trailer to rehearse his lines. He never came back out. The 35-year-old actor died from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning caused by a faulty heater in the trailer. The lack of proper ventilation turned what should have been a safe space into a death trap. Initial reports mistakenly stated that Kelton had died of a heart attack, but the autopsy revealed the true cause. His death shocked everyone who had worked with him, particularly his Quark castmates who had just months earlier said goodbye, thinking they'd cross paths again. His alma mater honored his memory by establishing the Richard Kelton Memorial Fund in December of 1978, which continues today as a scholarship for theater students with an emphasis on acting. Fact 7. Universal was fined only $720. When Richard Kelton died from carbon monoxide poisoning in his trailer on the Centennial set, the investigation that followed revealed a shocking failure in workplace safety. Universal Studios, the production company behind the miniseries, had provided Kelton with a trailer that had a faulty heater and inadequate ventilation. This wasn't a case of unpredictable equipment failure or an unforeseeable accident. It was a violation of basic safety standards that cost a man his life. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration conducted their investigation and determined that Universal Studios was responsible for the unsafe conditions that led to Kelton's death. The company was found liable and fined for their failure to provide proper ventilation in the trailer. The amount of that fine was $720. To put that number in perspective, Kelton was an established working actor who had appeared in dozens of television shows and films, performed on Broadway, and was in the middle of a co-starring role in a major network miniseries. His earning potential over the rest of his career would have been substantial. He left behind a wife named Eileen and a young son named Zachary, who would grow up without their husband and father. Yet the fine for the safety violation that killed him was less than the cost of a low-end laptop today. $720 wouldn't have covered a month's rent in most American cities, even in 1978. The disparity between the severity of the consequence, a man's death, and the monetary penalty imposed on the corporation responsible highlighted the lack of strong workplace safety enforcement in the entertainment industry at that time. While Universal Studios faced minimal financial consequences, the Kelton family faced a lifetime of loss, and the television industry lost a talented actor whose best work was likely still ahead of him. Fact 8. The female voice was dubbed. Tim Thomerson's character Jean/Jean was one of the most daring concepts in Quark's premise. Described as a transmute, Jean/Jean was a humanoid with a complete set of both male and female chromosomes, manifesting as a split personality that could switch between aggressive masculinity and stereotypical femininity at the worst possible moments. In the pilot episode, Thomerson performed both aspects of the character himself, using his natural voice for Jean's macho, gung-ho personality and then switching to a higher, mincing voice for Jean's more demure side. Buck Henry wrote the character to challenge gender stereotypes through comedy, and Thomerson's subtle performance in the pilot showed real skill, switching between Jean's no-nonsense attitude and Jean's nervous mannerisms with just a vocal and physical shift. One particularly funny moment had Gene rattling off his important ship duties to Captain Quark before suddenly switching to Gene's voice to add, "I almost finished my needlepoint." However, when the series returned in February of 1978, the producers made a controversial change. They hired actress Ann Prentice, sister of film actress Paula Prentice, to dub over Thomerson's female voice with her own performance. This decision, made without Buck Henry's involvement since he had moved on after the pilot, completely altered the character's comedic impact. The whole point of Gene was that this was one person with two conflicting sides, but having two different actors' voices made it seem less like a split personality and more like a bad dubbing job. Additionally, the Gene personality became increasingly exaggerated in the series, clearly modeled after Han Solo from Star Wars, with more cartoonish machismo that dominated the screen time, while the Gene side became less frequent and less interesting. What had been a clever, boundary-pushing character concept in the pilot became a walking punchline that never quite worked the way it was originally intended. Fact 9. A major character vanished after the pilot. When viewers tuned in to watch Quark's first episode after the pilot, they might have noticed that something, or rather, someone, was missing from the crew of the garbage scow. Dr. O.B. Mudd, the ship's research and equipment specialist, played by veteran character actor Douglas V. Fowley, had completely disappeared without explanation. In the pilot, Dr. Mudd was a crusty, cynical mad scientist type who served as the voice of reason among the crew while also working constantly to improve Andy the android, whom he had originally built. Fowley, who was 72 years old when he filmed the pilot, brought decades of experience to the role and had some of the funniest lines in Buck Henry's script. One memorable exchange had Mudd complaining to Captain Quark that he was fed up with his assignment and wanted off the ship. When Quark tried to talk him out of it by pointing out they were 17 light years from the nearest anything, Mudd disgustedly responded, "Then let me out, I'll walk." The character's relationship with Gene also provided comedic tension, with Mudd expressing clear prejudice against transmutes that Quark would call out. Dr. Mudd was also introduced as Andy the android's creator, which gave him an important narrative function in the show's universe. But when the series returned for its 7-episode run, Mudd was gone and replaced by Ficus Pandorata, the logical, emotionless Vegeton plant humanoid played by Richard Kelton. Ficus served as the show's Spock parody, engaging in pointless circular philosophical debates with Quark. While Ficus became a fan-favorite character, his addition meant losing the combative, cranky dynamic that Mudd brought to the crew. The producers never explained why Fowley didn't return or what happened to Dr. Mudd within the show's storyline, leaving him as one of television's forgotten characters. Fact 10. It received an Emmy nomination. Despite Quark's brief run and quick cancellation, the show managed to earn recognition from the Television Academy with a nomination in a category that often goes overlooked: costume design. Grady Hunt, the talented costume designer who worked on the series, received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Costumes for a series for his work on the 2-part episode All the Emperor's Quasi-Norms. This was the only Emmy nomination that Quark would receive during its existence, making it the show's sole brush with industry recognition. Grady Hunt was no stranger to Emmy attention by the time he worked on Quark. Born on May 16, 1921 in Lone Oak, Texas, Hunt had begun his career after serving in the Navy during World War II by opening a couture shop called Gratis in Dallas before moving to Los Angeles to work in film and television. Over his long career, he dressed some of Hollywood's biggest stars and collaborated with legendary costume designer Edith Head on Witness for the Prosecution, where they outfitted Marlene Dietrich. Hunt had already received Emmy nominations for his work on Columbo and the Snoop Sisters before Quark came along, and he would go on to earn additional nominations for Fantasy Island multiple times, Beulah Land, and other productions. His 9 Emmy nominations throughout his career demonstrated consistent excellence in his craft, though he won the actual award only once. For Quark, Hunt had to create costumes that walked the fine line between looking futuristic and intentionally cheap, befitting the show's satirical tone. The Betty's gold lame outfits became iconic in their own right, while Ficus's understated look and Andy the Android's boxy design all contributed to the show's distinctive visual style. Hunt continued working in television until his death on May 5, 2013 at age 91, leaving behind a legacy of memorable costume design. Fact 11. Conrad Janis went straight to Mork and Mindy. Conrad Janis played Autobob Palindrome on Quark, the petty bureaucrat who ran Space Station Perma-1 and took special delight in making Captain Quark's life miserable. His character's first name, Otto, and middle name, Bob, were both palindromes, fitting for a character who represented the worst aspects of middle management in a sci-fi setting. Janis brought his considerable acting experience to the role, having worked in film and television since the 1940s. But he was also an accomplished jazz trombonist who performed with his own bands throughout his career. When Quark ended in April of 1978, Janis didn't have to wait long before landing his next television role. That fall, he was cast as Frederick McConnell, the father of Pam Dauber's character Mindy, in a brand new ABC sitcom called Mork and Mindy. The show, which starred Robin Williams as an alien from the planet Ork, became an instant sensation and one of the biggest hits of the late 1970s. Suddenly, Janis went from appearing in a quickly canceled sci-fi spoof that almost nobody watched to being part of a cultural phenomenon that dominated the ratings. His character, Fred, owned a music store, though Janis later expressed disappointment that the producers never let him actually play his trombone on the show, despite having a perfect setup for it. In a strange twist, Janis was dropped from Mork and Mindy after the first season when ABC decided to eliminate the family characters and focus exclusively on Mork and Mindy's relationship. The decision backfired spectacularly when viewers sent massive amounts of protest mail demanding the return of Mindy's family, and Janis was brought back in a later season. He continued acting for decades afterward with roles in Frasier and Murder, She Wrote, but he always remained best known as Mindy's father. Fact 12. It appeared in Breaking Bad. Decades after Quark disappeared from television screens, the forgotten sci-fi spoof found new life in one of the most unexpected places imaginable. Breaking Bad, the critically acclaimed drama about a high school chemistry teacher turned drug manufacturer. In the Season 4 episode Bullet Points, which aired on August 7, 2011, the character Gail Botticher, played by David Costabile, appears in a karaoke video singing Peter Schilling's song Major Tom, Coming Home. The video was supposed to be a souvenir that Gail had recorded at a karaoke booth during a trip to Thailand, complete with Thai subtitles that were specifically translated for the production. Eagle-eyed viewers who watched carefully noticed something unusual in the background of the karaoke video. Stock footage from Quark was playing behind Gail as he sang. The footage showed scenes from the 1977 series, including shots of the garbage scow and various space sequences. This wasn't a random choice or something added by a set decorator. Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan personally selected the Quark footage because he had been a fan of the show during his childhood and recognized it while reviewing available stock footage options. Gilligan's affection for cult television shows from his youth frequently influenced Breaking Bad, and including Quark was his way of paying tribute to a series that had meant something to him even though it had been largely forgotten by mainstream audiences. The full karaoke video was later released on the official Breaking Bad website, allowing fans to watch the complete performance. The moment represented a strange kind of immortality for Quark, a show that had failed to find an audience in the 70s, suddenly reaching millions of viewers through its cameo in one of the most watched television series of the 2010s. Fact 13. The DVD became extremely valuable. For 3 decades after Quark's cancellation, fans who wanted to watch the show again had no official way to do so. The series never aired in syndication, never appeared on cable television reruns, and wasn't available for purchase in any format. That finally changed on October 14, 2008, when Sony Pictures Home Entertainment released Quark, the complete series on DVD. The 2-disc set included all 8 episodes, the pilot plus the 7 episodes from the regular. series run and was priced at $19.94, making it an affordable purchase for curious nostalgia seekers and sci-fi completists. Television fans who had been waiting years for an official release snapped up copies, finally able to own a piece of 70s television history that had been essentially unavailable through legal channels. However, Sony apparently didn't anticipate sustained demand for a short-lived sci-fi comedy from 1977. The initial DVD pressing sold through its inventory, and Sony made the decision not to manufacture additional copies. The DVD quickly went out of print, and once retailers sold through their remaining stock, no more were available through normal channels. That's when the secondary market took over. Copies of Quark, the complete series, began appearing on eBay, Amazon Marketplace, and other third-party selling platforms at dramatically inflated prices. What had been a $20 purchase new now commanded prices of $100, $200, or even higher, depending on the condition and the seller's ambitions. Some listings describe the set as HTF Rare OUP, shorthand for hard to find, rare, out of print, treating it like a valuable collectible rather than a recent DVD release. The price inflation demonstrated how cult followings work in the age of limited physical media. A small but dedicated group of fans willing to pay premium prices can turn an ordinary DVD into an expensive collector's item simply through scarcity and demand. Fact 14. It was only available from bootleggers. Before Sony finally released Quark on legitimate DVD in 2008, the show existed in a gray area that was familiar to fans of obscure television, the bootleg market. For approximately 30 years, from the late 70s through the early 2000s, the only way to watch Quark was through unofficial copies that circulated among collectors. These bootleg copies came in various formats as technology evolved, first on VHS tapes recorded from the original broadcasts or copied from other people's recordings, then later transferred to DVD-R discs burned on home computers. The quality varied wildly depending on how many generations removed a copy was from the original broadcast. Some bootlegs were recorded directly from NBC's 1977 and 78 airings and maintained relatively decent picture quality, while others had been copied and recopied so many times that the image became grainy and the audio muffled. Despite the questionable legality and inconsistent quality, a small but dedicated network of Quark fans kept the show alive through this underground distribution system. Science fiction conventions often had dealers who sold bootleg TV shows, and Quark would occasionally appear in their inventories alongside other rare or canceled series. Later, as the internet made communication easier, online forums and trading communities allowed fans to connect and exchange copies through the mail. Some fans who had taped the original broadcasts became sources for better quality copies, while others specialized in improving and restoring the footage they had. This bootleg culture created a cult following for Quark among people who appreciated obscure sci-fi television and get-smart-style humor. These fans traded episodes, discussed the show online, and kept its memory alive during the decades when it seemed like Quark would never receive official recognition or release, turning it into forbidden fruit that only the most dedicated television archaeologists could access. Fact 15. Harsh winter may have killed it. The winter of 1977 to 78 was one of the most brutal weather seasons in American history, particularly across the Midwest, where temperatures plummeted to record lows and blizzards struck repeatedly over a period of months. Cities like Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and others faced a seemingly endless assault of snow and sub-zero cold that paralyzed normal life and caused widespread infrastructure problems. One of the casualties of this harsh winter was television service across a huge swath of the United States. Antenna reception, which was still how most Americans received their TV signals in the late 70s, was disrupted by the extreme weather conditions. Ice accumulation on antennas, high winds knocking equipment out of alignment, and power outages from overloaded electrical grids all combined to make watching television difficult or impossible for millions of people in the regions most affected by the winter storms. This created terrible timing for Quark, which premiered its regular series run in February of 1978, right in the middle of this weather nightmare. The pilot had aired in May of 1977 during pleasant spring weather, but when NBC brought the show back 9 months later, it launched into an environment where a significant portion of the potential audience in the Midwest couldn't reliably watch television even if they wanted to. By the time spring arrived and the weather finally improved enough for normal TV viewing to resume, Quark had already been on the air for 2 months and would be canceled in April. The show never had a chance to build an audience under normal viewing conditions, while other factors certainly contributed to Quark's failure, including its modest budget, uneven writing, and a competitive Friday night time slot. The unprecedented winter weather may have been the final nail in the coffin for a show that was already struggling to find viewers.